for such a long time, people, especially in Lima, now maybe this is everywhere, but here especially, we've talked about things forever.
Yeah.
And it's really becoming doers. And I think once they started seeing that it was actually going to happen, it was just the same with Rhodes State College. Everybody thought, for years, that'll never happen. Mm-hmm. The Boris Center will never. And when it did, people started believing.
Welcome to the Small Nation Podcast, brought to you by CoverLink Insurance, where people are more important than policies. On this show, we unpack lessons from entrepreneurs, break down development strategies, and do deep dives on small town success. Our goal is to provide value to our listeners by hosting conversations that teach, inform, and inspire. Hey everyone, my name is Ethan DeLeon, and today we are in the Central District in downtown Lima, Ohio, with the founder and CEO of Small Nation, Jason Duff. Today we are thrilled to be hosting a conversation with local entrepreneur and developer Tracie Sanchez. Welcome, Tracie.
Thank you for having me.
Tracie, it's great to be here. As we were driving to Lima, Ohio today, it is a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Number one, the sun is out, and driving into town, if you've not been to Lima, there are some very iconic special businesses here.
Yep.
And one of them happens to be Kewpie Hamburgers.
Oh, come on.
Amen.
If you have not had a Kewpie hamburger, I want to get it right. What's
a hamburger with a pickle on top makes the heart go flippity flop.
So the Shutt family, for those of you that have never been, like you drive into town and you do see this naked baby that says hamburgers underneath it, and then you walk inside, and the people are so nice there. They smile at you. You feel welcome, and there's not a very it's not fancy kiosk with lots of computer systems.
Old time diner, white outfits with the hats.
A lot of tenure employees.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And not only is the food really good, but when you learn the story of the Shutt family and how they have given so many people in the community their first job opportunity, or like you said, tenure. Some of their employees have been there for 30, 40, 50 years.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that I am always inspired by meeting people like you, Tracie, and people like the Shutts is the way that they give back to the community. And that the Shutts, for me, going to school at Ohio Northern, getting involved in the arts here in Lima, they would generously fund and create the ONU Holiday Spectacular, which is this amazing New York style, think rocket kind of show that happens here at the Civic Center in Lima. And that wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for the Shutt family kind of coming together to do that.
Absolutely. They're big supporters of the arts and music and those kind of things. So they're iconic, just beautiful people. Like you said, if you know that family, they're just very, very giving, and they do burgers right.
Yeah, exactly. That's great.
Yeah.
Get a malt too, right?
And the malts,
from
burger
Kewpie.
malts.
Well, that kind of leads to you and your family, and you've got a lot of ties and history to the Lima area as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
I do. I was born and raised in Lima, Ohio, went to Bath School, had a family business. My mother and father started a business. I always wanted to be a school teacher, so went to school for that for a little bit, but the business started growing rather quickly. Left school, went back and worked for the family business, and have been at Lima Pallet for 42 years now, probably going on 43.
And when people think of pallets, shipping and logistics all around the world, there's a darn good chance that a pallet is involved in that operation somewhere.
Absolutely. So our pallets go all over the world. We have a little niche that a lot of pallet companies don't, and that's that we can heat treat what we do, which you hear about that ash borer bug. Going across state lines or into other countries. So we actually can treat for that. So we are government regulated. They come in, audit our books on a monthly basis, which a lot of people don't want to deal with.
Right.
But we do, and it's well worth it. So that helps us export a lot of things, whether it's going to China or Australia or Mexico or Canada or wherever it may go.
Mm-hmm. Super
and
cool.
Your parents founded the company?
They did. It was kind of odd. My dad was a salesman. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and he had a friend that had worked at a warehouse, and they were having a few beers one night, and there was a need. Once again, it boils down to you have to find that need that a customer wants. He didn't own his own business. He was a salesman, but he went. They grabbed a couple of these pallets, tore them apart. He says, "Well, how hard is that?" He put a couple nails in it and fixed it. He's like, "Well, I'd be king." if I can save my company a bunch of money, right now we're throwing them in dumpsters, when they're broke. If you could fix them, we're buying these all new. If I could get even back at half price, I'm the king of the company, I'm saving my company a ton of money. So really, that's how Lima Pallet was born. It started with one company. To this day, we really don't have a salesman on the road. My son-in-law does internal sales. We'll throw him out on the road when we need to, but most of it's been by word of mouth that the company has built over all these years.
Wow. And growing up in this area, Lima Pallet Company, like that's a very reputable name, and it's been around for a long time. But you were telling me on our conversation before the show here, like some of the cool things that you've begun to implement with your time, running the business. So can you tell us a little bit about some of that?
Sure. So, being that I always wanted to be a teacher, it was one of those things that our business is real close to the prison, the Allen Corrections. And I had a friend that worked out there, and they said, have you ever thought of hiring, felons, people that are just about ready to get back into society? And at first I was like, I don't know about that. But it was kind of nice. What I learned very, very quickly, they became the best employees that I could have because they never missed work. They wanted out. The bus would transport them there. They couldn't leave for lunch or for breaks. Never called in sick because they wanted out for that little bit of time. But what I ended up finding out that they became the best employees because you were willing to give them a second chance. And most of them, when I go around and I speak, it's no one grows up saying, "Hey, I want to be a felon when I grow up."
Yeah.
Right.
I could write a book about the stories that you hear about their childhood, and they were while we were at school learning, they were surviving. They was where's my next meal coming from, or where's my head's going to lay down. So when you get to know those people, and one of my biggest fears were a lot of them were from out of state. So you're thinking, well, once they get out in 1 year, I've invested all this time and effort and money in them. They're going to leave my company. Well, what you found out is no, they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to go back to those gangs or to the bad family issues that they had. They wanted to stay where they were because we treated them like family. So I really started investing in people.
Yeah.
They're not a number; they were people, and it was rehabilitation. It was, teaching them how to use a debit card, and that cash is king, and credit's important, and all those things that once again we take for granted. And one of the things I found out too was that they couldn't get housing. A lot of felons, you can't get an apartment a lot of times.
You get that rental application, and that's usually one of the questions. And there's a lot of applications out there that's a question that can disqualify you from things.
Even from a job. I mean, if you've been a previous felon. So they became, once again, my biggest, I was one of their biggest supporters. So, I started buying up housing, paid cash for it. I don't charge them interest. We take it right out of their paycheck, but it was giving them pride, making them feel a part of the community. And that's kind of how, that part of that teaching, and when you could make a person that's had a bad rap their whole life and you give them that second chance and they appreciate what you were doing and you could make a good citizen out of them. We started then a program that we were help them to give back.
Yeah.
So we would go work at the West Ohio Food Bank and we would hand out food boxes, so not always being on the receiving end, but the giving end then.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what started, if you want to move into the Central District a little bit.
I was going to say, real quick on that, as we were talking and I was hearing your story, the term social entrepreneurship came to mind. I went to college to study business, and that we spent a lot of time talking about social entrepreneurship, and this idea of solving these. I had a class call it wicked problems, not wicked as in evil, but like very complicated, very human issues. And so I just appreciate the work that you're doing, with that business specifically. And then, I think there's an element of that even into, the Central District and work that we're kind of here to talk about today. I think our audience will be very curious to hear more about the Central District.
Can you give a little lay of the land of what is the Central District, but then also some of the challenges that have, as the economic cycles have changed in downtown Lima, some of the problems here?
Yeah.
Sure. So to start with, in the Central District, just to give a little history of how this even developed, I was the president of Rotary, and we had to build the amphitheater. Rich Rudolph from Rudolph Foods was a classmate of mine, so we were good friends, and he said, hey, you're going to be president this year. He says, we need to do something big in downtown Lima. We have Rhodes State College going downtown. He says, we need a green space downtown. So what started to be about a $200,000 project, when we started with Rotary, we started getting the arts involved and all these different people involved, and it grew to about a $4 million project.
Wow.
So we were raising a lot of money.
Yeah.
The state helped us out quite a bit, but during that whole adventure of trying to figure out where we were going to build this amphitheater, we picked the worst part of downtown Lima. So we had our square, and if you went to the north, you had some pretty nice restaurants, and it was getting rebuilt. The east and the west was looking good, but the south quadrant of our downtown was nothing but rundown buildings, all boarded up, crime-ridden. People, people just didn't want to come to this area. No one walked this area.
Yeah.
It was just an ugly part of downtown Lima. So he said, this is where we're going to put it.
Which, by the way, took a lot of courage.
It did.
Can we just be honest?
Well, people
Because
thought we were crazy.
I was
They're
gonna say,
like,
what
why
was the
in
reaction?
the world? Well,
Yeah.
and even donors at first,
Yeah.
it was hard to we're not going to invest. Why would we invest our money? There's
Southeast
no way that's
Lima.
going to fly. It was very negative. So we had a lot of obstacles.
And this is a very industrial part of the state. You got a lot of railroads running through here, old steel mills and everything, and so a lot of blue collar workers. And just over time, jobs were leaving and houses started to go vacant, and like you were
Population
saying,
started going down.
right? Yeah. And so, I mean, for listeners, if you've been listening for a while, you know that I'm originally from this area. And so I wasn't even allowed to really be in South Lima, really at night, growing up, even if I were to visit a friend or something really,
After dark.
my parents didn't really want me doing that there or doing anything down there when I was driving and things like that. So yeah, I can understand, just for listeners, I guess, to understand the context of moving into this space. But today we are touring the Central District, which is very exciting. And congratulations on all the work that you've been doing so far.
Thank you.
Super cool. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what this building is that we're recording in right now.
Yeah, this whole block is part of the Central District.
Yep.
And what started out to be the reason that we even purchased this block, it started out with just myself. And we purchased it on the pretense of we had this beautiful amphitheater going one block away, and we didn't want these buildings to fall in the wrong hands. We had a ton of body shops and junkyards. And early on, if you think about this, about 2 years ago, this street was nothing but body shop cars and broken down. The streets were full of, once again, buildings were just ugly. So we bought this not even knowing what we were going to do with it. But the one thing I did know is that back to Lima Pallet, when I took care of those felons, and I always say no one's going to retire from a pallet company. That's hard, brutal work. So it's like, what can we do to upskill, to give them an opportunity to even be more? Because a lot of them wanted to go to college but couldn't afford college or didn't even know how to go there. Some of them didn't even have GEDs, so we've helped people get their GEDs. Yeah. So the makerspace next door, which is now going to be called the Hub, was one of the first ideas that came to mind. Is like, wow, if we can do this at Lima Pallet for 50-some employees, what can we do at a community level? And the biggest thing was to take it to the neighborhoods that needed it. So if we could get the gangs off the street, if we could get the kids that are going to drop out from the school, and if we could give them an opportunity to come and feel comfortable right in their neighborhood, that's when we started getting the investors in that building. So we got the Synovises and the Nutrients and the Mercy Health. It's like, wow, everybody has a workforce issue.
Right.
What if we, and if we could take that to, and a lot of these don't have to have college degrees for some of these, and they're making 6 digits by controllers and things like that. They don't need, they do need engineers, they need certain people, but there was an opportunity for us to help with the workforce for them. And
I would say in the current landscape, you almost see a kind of a reversal shift here, where it's like the higher paying jobs. Like if you want job security, if you want high paying jobs, you should really start looking at the trades. And you're seeing a lot of career centers, become more popular, and even public schools and things like that. So yeah, that's super cool. Do you have maybe a testimonial or two of someone who went through a program and
I do.
is doing cool stuff?
So one of our major tenants that's over there is Steady Does It Mechanical. So Chris is a plumber by trade. He was part of the trades, decided he wanted to open up his own business. He's also a teacher. So he's already ran his first program through there. He took a lot of disadvantaged, underserved children from the Lima City school system and brought them in. Probably 90% were African American. I think he had 15, maybe 18 students in there. They ran through a 10-week program, cost nothing, and he actually taught them plumbing. So how to become plumbers, how to hook up a sink, how to hook up a toilet, they actually ran water in that building to a hot water heater that was downstairs. So and the parents were just thrilled. These kids would go to school during the day, come here in the evening, and he would actually run this program free of charge. He made nothing off of it. He got a couple of us to help sponsor, so we bought pizza and and things like that. But that was just the first program. He's already getting ready to launch his second, and it's filled up with a waiting list.
Wow.
So yeah, and some of these kids then in the summer of last year got to work with him. So he actually took them on the job. I think he's even got one that's graduated now that didn't want to go to college. He's actually working with him on a full-time basis. So
That's great.
it just goes to show that if you could get the kids off the street, get them interested in the trades are huge. You
Yeah.
know, we need electricians and carpenters and
So bad. It's everywhere right now.
Yeah.
And if you think where we're at, like you said, Ethan, is here in Allen County, very strong industrial base. I mean,
Yeah.
very large companies like the Lima tank plant, the Ford is here, and then also Procter and Gamble. I mean, big names that
refinery.
are international that need employees. And you're also in an area that the unemployment rate, not only here in Ohio, but particularly in Northwest Ohio, is very, very low. So what I took away is how you identified a problem that everyone's saying, I can't find employees, is turning that into an opportunity and giving people a second chance.
Right. So then it comes to this building.
Yeah,
So that to get to that opportunity, as I was fundraising for the amphitheater, I got to meet quite a few CEOs and general managers of big corporations as we were fundraising, and I was selling that whole story because I was very passionate about what we were doing. A lot of it came down to when you got to the Mercy Health, some of the docs and some of the CEOs, even at Ford Motor Company, that was the story that a lot of them didn't live in Lima, Ohio because their families didn't want to be here. There was nothing to do.
Yeah.
So that's when the light bulb goes on. It's like, okay, we need to have people quit leaving Lima. We need them to move here and want to stay here. So once again, part of workforce development is you have to have things in a destination place that people want to come and stay. So that's where this building started. We started talking about it, and I partnered up with John Hafey. He had some ideas too. So he owned part of Main Street. We had bought this city block. Then he bought the Cullen building that he's in now, that he's doing a lot of work on. But it was almost to create an entertainment district so that people want to stay. So we call this a central district, but if you talk to our mayor, she's going to say this is the entertainment district.
Yeah.
Now they've passed, we've got the DORA in effect, and we've got 2 trolley cars that's through our RTA.
Nice.
That'll go around to all the different places. The entertainment district, now they just got passed last summer, so now we're part of an entertainment district, so we've got 14 or 15 more liquor licenses
Wow.
at a very reasonable rate that we can use within the DORA or within the entertainment district area. So that's where now we're working on the retail and the shop, the shopping places, the courtyard out here where there's things to do, the amphitheater that they can come down, pedestrian walkways.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest wake-up calls about 2 months ago, it was pitch black, and I wanted to see what the building, they finally got the lights up on the outside of this building. It's like, yes, I want to see what it looks like in the morning. So I was on my way to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's pitch black, and I pulled up in front, and I'm just sitting there while I watched 2 people jog down Spring Street. Now, 2 years ago, you'd have never seen 2 people jog down Spring Street.
Yeah.
And I watched them, and they came in, and they came up along the side of the building, and I saw them tug on the door because they thought Winans opened. Well, this was like 6:15. Winans doesn't open until 6:30 in the morning, and I know they wanted a cup of coffee. So as they're coming back, you still couldn't tell because they had their hoods up. It was, it was chilly. It was in the middle of winter, and I rolled down my window real quick. I said, "Hey, they'll be open in 15 minutes." Well, here it's 2 ladies jogging. They said, "Oh yeah, we'll be back." And they said, "No problem." I said, "Okay." I said, "Just 15 minutes, they'll be open," because you don't want to lose a customer.
Right,
I
that's
got
right.
excited.
Sell coffee.
So I watch them, and they go right past, down Central, up Elm Street. Well, I'm just telling you, 2 years ago, you would have never seen 2 women by themselves jogging at dark, in this area. So, once again, it's just you could see that the positivity and the things that are happening in Lima, Ohio. That image, that narrative of being, this crime-ridden and no one wants to be here. It's all changing now. You're seeing all the positive things coming.
It's got to be at least 15 years ago, but part of my connection and introduction to Tracie is I had a chance to come up and speak to your Rotary Club. And this, was really when we were just getting started in downtown Bellefontaine. And many of the same reasons that Tracie decided to plant her flag and make these changes and investments were similar in our town. And, it was really, it's exciting to be back here because as we were driving in today, you do feel there's a sense of energy that's changing here. And from the outside, when it's easy to pull into a parking lot that you have acquired and made nice and bought, and then you see this very large projecting sign that has Winans, chocolates, and coffee, which one of the best ways to restart a community, our neighborhood, is to have a great coffee shop. And then, today, walking inside of this beautiful historic building that has been completely redone, we got to weave through and meet some of your tenants today. Do you mind kind of just sharing a little bit about what the heart and the people behind that are now in this building?
Sure. So most of our tenants are brand new tenants. Other than Winans, Winans is a staple, but as far as Nellie and the touch of Europe, so Nellie Metzger's from Bulgaria. She's Bulgarian.
Wonderful personality, by the way.
And
coming
accent,
in,
just love her accent.
I mean, part of buying something, not only this product, and by the way, our team member Nick, I say, of anything we came to Lima today, we are going home with some delicious bakery goods from her shop. But she greeted us. She told us her story.
Yeah.
She was excited to welcome us to her bakery. You can't replicate that in corporate America.
No, and Nellie's story, is such a great story too. She's been in her basement for 7 or 8 years. It was just baking out of her basement, and she wanted brick and mortar. She will tell you, I wanted to live the American dream. I came here, I live here. I've lived here for a while now. I just wanted to own my own business someday. So her story is just the coolest story, and a lot of her ingredients come from overseas. Her prices are a little bit more expensive, but people will pay for that.
Yes.
For good quality, no preservatives. She adds 0 sugar. If it doesn't already come with sugar in it, she doesn't put it in it.
Wow.
Most of her stuff is gluten free. I mean, she just has something about what she does, and then her artistic ability. I mean, every single piece of whatever she makes, I can't even pronounce some of them, are made from her heart.
And putting that right by the entrance was a good move, by the way.
Oh, and it smells when she's baking. Like I said, when she shuts down at 6 and then she bakes till 10 and she's stocking up fresh bread. In Lima, you can't go and buy a fresh loaf of bread every morning.
Yeah.
So people will line up in the morning. They try to get in here early because she sells out every single day. So she does a great job.
What other tenants do you have through the
So then
space?
the Abdera soap shop. So that's Michael Thompson. He's actually was just a pop-up shop. He has a full-time job. He's a chemical engineer at Charles River. So he's actually expanding. He's going to hire employees. Never wanted to have his own business, but he did so well at a pop-up that he ended up staying. So he's actually moving to a bigger spot on the second floor. iHeartRadio will be moving in soon, doing their own podcast shows here live and having a concert series in the summertime out in our courtyard. Modish Maven Boutique, brand new. She's worked at boutiques before, but always wanted to own her own business. So
Really stylish, by the way, and her product, very trendy and appealing. And she not only has clothing, she's got jewelry and accessories too.
She does, and shoes, you name it. So she's coming along great. Frank Cage, great artistic, just marketing, computer, web designs, things like that.
Yeah.
So he does a lot of our marketing. So if you get on our social media page and follow us on Facebook, if you see the reels and you see a lot of anything posted by Central District, that's usually Frank Cage. So he does all of
we
that.
just got to talk with him a little bit about the importance of branding and helping be able to tell people stories. And I do think as we travel around to other towns and communities, you can have great buildings and you can even have great tenants, but if we don't get the word out about who they are, the heart behind what they do, that's why having a person like Frank in his company in your project and your buildings really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just a great asset and just brings a really neat vibe, to our area. And then on the third floor, right now we have it's called the Infinity Hair Studio, getting ready to go in. She hopes to be in by April 1st, so doing her build out. We have the Social House Lofts, which is a small space, up to about 60 people we could probably fit in there. And that's just for small, whether it's a wedding shower, a baby shower, small parties, birthday parties, gathering places for business meetings, things like that. Lima really has a need for small spaces. We have a lot of big places that you can rent, so more inexpensive. A place like we could have a club or someone come in and just hang out.
Yeah. And then talk to us about what your plans are for the back patio area.
Yeah, so in the back we have it'll be called the Social House. It's a new restaurant bar, bourbon bar, outdoor patio area with a big courtyard. It will have 2 fire pits outside with bocce ball, cornhole, outdoor ping pong. It'll also have a small stage. for local bands, nothing large, just small local bands. It could be poetry, things like that. And then the big screen TV also, which will be really cool, so we can watch baseball games or have things going on in the courtyard. One of the well-kept secrets that we haven't really released yet, too, is we do have a professional ice sculptor that will be coming on board. So
wow.
Exclusive here on the podcast.
That's right. You guys are the first to hear. So, Shannon, he will be doing a lot of our ice sculpting in the wintertime. So we'll have a lot of photo ops outside in the courtyard. And then he's also a professional pumpkin carver.
Wow.
So in this fall, we're planning on a big pumpkin festival, which Lima's never had. So
yeah. I was going to say, for if you're listening from a bigger city or you're used to those kind of amenities, some of that stuff may be easy to brush over. But for a smaller community who just hasn't had stuff like this, it's a big deal. So
well, and just looking up the street, you mentioned John Hafey, and he's another really big force of just his entrepreneurship, his giving, but his project in its Fifth and Vine. What do I want to say? Do you know what's his project called?
Spring and Main.
Spring and Main. That's it.
Yes,
Spring and Main. I knew it was 2 words. Spring and Main. But multiple restaurants are coming, and already right down the street from his project at Spring and Main is the Old City Prime, which is wonderful. Beautiful sit-down restaurant. I had the pleasure to eat there several times, and then right up the road, another great restaurant is the Met.
Absolutely.
So another very inspiring entrepreneur. But if this new project's going to involve a lot of different restaurants that'll be in walking distance of the Central District.
Absolutely, yes. So he's got the old Casa Luau. He's resurrecting with that family, so that's really, really cool. A lot of people are looking forward to that. He's got No-Nos down in the basement, which is kind of an Italian vibe, really, really cool. More exclusive private areas in the basement of that facility. Let's see, the second floor is the Pens Duck Bowling.
Duck Bowling, yep.
That he's going to have going on. I think he has a bar on that floor too. Then he's got the Vista Taco outdoor bar, which will be really, really cool, rooftop bar and restaurant that it'll be neat in Lima. And then the top floor is Rudolph Foods Research and Development. So he is completely full. We're really looking forward to that. And the city of Lima has just really been great too. Like I said, we have a lot of the streetscape going in and new streets, new curbs, new sidewalks, landscape, new lighting. And we'll have the ability on Spring Street to be able to close that down to make it a pedestrian walkway so we can have artists and festivals and a safe place for people to be able to walk in between all the areas, especially when we have things going on at the amphitheater.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you can just kind of see how all of that works together, in a healthy ecosystem. And you talked about John Hafey, and I know you talked about Rich Rudolph and a few others. I know the Rotary Club played a pretty big role for you. So I was just going to ask you, what if you would maybe share your perspective of participating in groups like that and the value you see in it, and I don't know, just some advice to younger professionals.
It's all about network. You have to have a network of people. I mean, I'm sure you know.
I'm learning.
I always say you could be the smartest person in the room and you could have the most degrees, but if you don't have the network of people, you're only as, I always say, I'm only as successful as my team behind me. You have to build good teams, you build good people, you have to have people that are all moving in the same direction, that have the same visions that you have. And a lot of this is not just my vision, this is a lot of people. There's input every single day. Things change every day. Do they go great every day? No.
We were just talking about that.
Yes, we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
There's some rough days. There's days you don't sleep at night. There's days you toss and turn, and how am I going to pay this bill tomorrow? And nothing's easy. It just takes a lot of work, but it's always having the right perspective, that network of people, through Rotary, honestly, I would have never, ever probably even got to a project like this. I was happy at Lima Palette doing my own little thing.
What made you want to join the Rotary Club?
It was a mentor of mine, John Rockhold, had talked me into, he invited me, and honestly, I didn't even know what Rotary was back then. I was probably maybe 50 years old, 51 years old before I even joined Rotary. And he had talked me to, and you want to talk about an intimidating room, because anybody is sitting in a Rotary room, and we have a big Rotary Club, and it was very intimidating when I first went in. I wasn't real sure I was going to join, but I think I probably went almost a month, probably 4 or so Mondays in a row, and had lunch and started networking. And then that's when the light bulb went on. It's like how important networking is, because when you put the right people in the right room, the things that you can get done or you can accomplish, whether it's local, whether it's your administration at the city level, then the state level. I sit on, I think I'm down to 6 boards now. I was at 9. I keep dwindling those down as I get older now. Older and wiser, you'd like to think. But it is those connections, you have to know who to go to and how to navigate systems and all those different things. It's just, Rotary was a big part in whether, all of this that happened and all of the amphitheater that happened. None of that would have happened without the Rotary.
I was going to say, I mean, you're living proof right now. I mean, it started with the amphitheater, and that started that momentum that eventually led to this. And doesn't sound like you guys are done yet. So,
No, not
all right, at this time, we're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. Brew Fountain's voted best beer bar in Ohio. Come visit their award-winning team in downtown Bell Fountain for fresh, local craft beer, soups, salads, sandwiches, wine on tap, and handcrafted cocktails. And they're always available to cater your next event with their boxed lunches and platters. Cheers to Small Nation. Come check out 600 Downtown Pizzeria in downtown Bell Fountain, where they cherish the art of making the most authentic, unique, and delicious, world-famous and award-winning pizzas. Their team hand-spins each pizza the old-fashioned way and only uses the freshest of ingredients. Come see why they were featured on the Food Network.
I appreciate you speaking about your younger self, and the seasoning of life gives us perspective and gives us, we get to look back a little bit. For people that may be, beginning their career, or, they now look up to you, Tracie, and what you've accomplished. Do you have any advice for your younger self as you think about that?
Well, I always tell them, get involved, whether it's the young professionals, whether it's Allen Lima Leadership here in Lima, Ohio. There's different clubs even in school, but it's starting that network. I have a son in college now, and he wants to go to med school, and one of my biggest pieces of advice I gave him, and he's a wrestler to boot, so Division I, he's wrestling, and going to med school, it's not even heard of when you're Division I because athletes don't get to do those kind of things, but I told him it's all about who you know. It's not what you know. I said, so you study hard. And what he did and ended up doing is, he had 2 donors that were huge donors for Oklahoma State University. And he got to know them, and they were both surgeons. Well, come to find out, they kind of took him when they knew he wanted to go to med school, took him under his wing. He started shadowing, got to know them very, very well. And come to find out, they both sit on the medical board of review.
Wow, that helps, right?
Yeah.
But, it's those connections. So, hopefully, he hasn't been accepted yet, but I think he has an interview coming up here in April. So, once again, and med school is hard to get into. That's not an easy thing to accomplish, but once again, like I said, you could be the smartest person, but if you don't have a network or someone to go to or someone that can help push you or to navigate a system, it's just tough. So my goal for anyone young is to get involved in some kind of civic community, somebody, get a mentor, something that you're in. And you may not even know what you want to do, but it's get involved.
Yeah. So this part of the state, I would say, to say it nicely, we tend to have some stubborn personalities. So I
Really?
guess,
Are you sure about that?
I mean, I know my family and extended family and things like that, and friends in the area. But I wanted to pose the question to you: is how did you get so many stakeholders? I mean, I know some of it started with the Rotary, but like to get so many people on board with the vision. First, maybe with the amphitheater, because I know once you started talking about it and what you're going to do, like other people wanted a part of it. And then, again, that momentum started to pick up after that. But how did you get so many people to stay glued to this vision?
I think for such a long time, people, especially in Lima, now maybe this is everywhere, but here especially, we've talked about things forever.
Yeah.
And it's really becoming doers. And I think once they started seeing that it was actually going to happen, it was just the same with Rhodes State College. Everybody thought, for years, that'll never happen. The Boris Center will never. And when it did, people started believing. Well, it was the same with the amphitheater. We fundraised and we kept saying, and, I'd show visuals at Rotary and we'd talk about it on the news. And, for years, that was a 5-year project also. But as it started happening, so as people start seeing you do things, you start people start believing in what you do. So that vision is a little bit easier to sell, and it's to get that buy-in. But it's also making those relationships. People have to trust you, and you have to trust people. And that's why I always say that relationships matter. So, but it is that trust, it's the truth, just not everything's perfect. If you screw up, it's okay. And it's okay to say I screwed up, or it's okay to say I'm not perfect, but don't hide something, or don't not tell me the truth. I mean, to me, and even working with the city administration, it's being honest and open. And people say, well, you don't want the building department. No, I bring the building department in on the front end before. Can I do this because this is how I want it to happen?
Yeah.
They appreciate that.
And you're just avoiding those conflicts down the road, right?
Well, sure. And everyone wants to be needed and wants to be helpful. So it's really just building that good team and moving, rowing the boat, and you have that vision and you bring all those visions together.
Tracie, what has been the biggest learning curve as you've kind of charted off with this large investment and, serving as a developer, serving on the various roles of recruiting tenants and, managing construction? And I know you mentioned the importance of the team, but for you personally, what has been, welcome to Lima, there's the train.
There's the train.
But
right
for you, what's been the biggest learning curve to get over with this project?
There's a lot of things, I probably would have done different had I started over. So as we go to the next building, you just think that you never stop learning. I guess that would be probably the biggest thing. Did I make mistakes in this? Absolutely. Did I do some of the things wrong? Absolutely. But it's just, you just have to have that forward vision that we're going to get there in the end. There's a lot of things I would have done different. There's no doubt about that. But
well, you and I were talking about the cost of things. So when you design something on paper, and then you work with architects and engineers and contractors, the idea of, hey, we may create this, but what's it going to cost? That is hard to get to that number. Because as business people, you kind of want to look at things at black and white. But with a historic building and doing something in Lima, Ohio that's completely uncharted, there's a lot of holding hands together.
Oh my gosh, and all the unknowns, the things you start digging in the ground. It's like, don't dig too deep.
Exactly.
You don't know if there's a tank down there.
Right.
There's something.
That's
What you're going to fall in, And I mean, this place was exactly that. You didn't realize till we were trying to put the drive-through next door that there was a building there before. So they get down to the footers and there's
surprise.
8-foot concrete walls all the way through the bottom that they had to drill. I mean, it's crazy stuff. So you're right. You have this budget, so you think. We blew that out of the water a long time ago, but it's just, you keep trudging along and you keep seeing the vision, and, the end result is, all good things will come, to those. It's really just that honesty and giving the community what it needs and what it wants. And that's really what it's all about, is figuring out, what do we need? What does our community need? And it's all working together.
What do you think people are saying about the project now as you're out and about? What do people come up to you? Do you get complaints plus?
Well, you always get complaints.
Well, that's what I want people to know, because when first off, you've accomplished an amazing feat here, and you're out in the grocery store. Give us this perspective of the good and the bad of the kind of things that you as a leader get to hear.
Well, most people are amazed when they first walk in the building because it gives you that big city feel. So it's something that Lima's never had before. So when you walk in and you see the lighting and you see the big tall ceilings and the concrete floor, and it smells good, and you have all. So people are surprised, and then you have these little places where they can sit, and we have high-speed internet. We made sure that we put the best internet service in here, and so they can get on and do their laptop. So I think I get a lot of compliments as to, wow, Lima really needs that. I hear that quite often. Lima really needed that. And then you get the complaints too, the parking and the construction, and especially if someone you're trying to get somebody from out of town to come in, and you want them to, they say, hey, I heard you got some space, I want to see it. And they're like, wow, but look at the sidewalk and look at this area. Like, whoa, wait, we have a streetscape coming in. The only reason we didn't put the sidewalks in is because the city's going to do it for us.
Yeah.
So it's really, a lot of times you have to sell that vision, so I have a lot of paper that shows what it's going to look like when it's all completed and done. And
renderings, things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny you bring up parking. I was thinking about adding a show segment with parking.
There we go. I like it.
In this season, so maybe we'll have to pull that out sometime. But cool. I want to kind of move us into a little bit of a show segment here. Real estate deep dive. So there's a little sound for it.
Right.
Jumping in here, I know there's kind of a cool story with how you actually acquired this building. And so I was hoping that maybe you could share some of that on the show.
Yeah, so when I acquired this, once again, it went back to the amphitheater. So the people that we bought this actually was one of the sites we looked at for the amphitheater.
Okay.
But we decided not to put it here because of the trains that you just heard go by. I thought, wow, right in the middle of a concert, can you imagine? And the train blows its whistle, and now you've got 15 minutes as the train rolls by. So, but the people that we bought it's Esther and Chester Carey, who own a lot of downtown Lima at the time, and probably still do. That's where we bought the amphitheater part of that property from them anyway. And the lady, she was in her late 80s, probably early 90s, and she just took a liking to me, and we just had a lot of frank conversations about where we wanted to put this amphitheater. And when it was all said and done, she came to me and she says, "Hey, I want to see you in my office." I'm like, "Okay, Esther, I'll come see you in your office."
Yeah.
So I go, and she says, "I want you to buy the city block that you guys were looking at." I'm like, "Esther, I'm a pallet company. I'm not a developer. I don't need any other buildings." And she's like, no, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. One of those. It's like, okay.
Okay.
But she did. Make me an offer I couldn't refuse. I mean, it was dirt cheap. She just wanted to get rid of them. She knew what that vision with the amphitheater was going to be. She knew that she didn't have the time, in her life that she wanted to do it. She had no family members that really wanted it. And I really didn't know what I was going to do with it. My biggest concern was I just didn't want it to fall in the wrong hands. We had this beautiful amphitheater. We had momentum with the Rhodes State College. So I thought, well, at least if I purchase them, I could sit on them. We know that there's no more junkyards or body shops or things that are going to go downtown. And once again, that's where that kind of vision started. It was really pulling the right people. I went to the Chamber of Commerce and talked to Jed Metzger, and it's like, look, I got these buildings. What should we do with them? And then that's when we started pulling the right team together, pulling people together to say what that vision could be. I knew, once again, at the makerspace, kind of what I wanted to do at a community level, so that kind of sparked some interest. And, then it just really kept growing. And as we did the fundraising, that's the destination places that Lima needed. And, then John Hafey got on board, and he's like, well, if she's got that block, I can do this. Yeah, I can do this part. And then everybody just started partnering together, and, the mayor got involved, and we had really good administration. And it was really just everybody rowing the boat in the same direction and to get things done.
I love about your story is that you didn't do any of this alone. Like you invited a bunch of people in, let it be all of our success. And I think that is probably why you're seeing the ability to actually take action on some of these things. And you followed through on it, and people are noticing, and that invites other investment, which is super cool. So I'm going to kind of move us into some more closing questions. But I appreciate all the lessons that you've kind of dropped and sprinkled in through this episode so far. But what is one professional development resource outside of the Rotary Club that was impactful for you along your professional journey?
Well, Jobs Ohio. So I knew Chase Eichelberry from a long time ago. She works for RGP now. But I sit on the board for the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation. I've done that, I think, almost 11 or 12 years now. And got to know Chase very well at the state level. So some of that came from the Vibrancy Grant, that we that really helped us get through this project. If it would not have been for that help, this project may have never helped either, or happened either. Mm-hmm. So, at the state level, I think just those connections that I had really helped spark some of the things that we were doing.
Yeah, it's cool to hear that. I mean, we've done a lot of ours without grants and things like that, so it's cool to hear when those programs are working well for people. And then my last question here is, where can people follow you and your business to keep up with the work that you're doing?
So we do have Central District Lima Facebook page.
Okay.
I believe we have Instagram, not an Instagram person here,
Yeah.
old people. And Frank Cage is working on our webpage now. We do have a webpage, but eventually you'll be able to actually get on there, hit a button, go into each of our tenants. That'll take you right to their website. So if you want to go to Modish Maven and actually shop, you can shop online. Winans will have the same thing, so that you can order online, and I think it gets shipped out of Pickle, wherever they ship from. So eventually we're getting there. We're getting real close, but they definitely can follow us. Social media, Facebook's probably the best place right now.
Great.
Or take a day trip and
Amen.
come to the Central District in
That's
Lima,
right.
Ohio.
Come
right?
see us. That's right.
Yeah, very cool. Jason,
Well,
if you have a recap for us?
I am inspired by the second chances that you give people, and just sharing how you took a problem. And I think that's kind of a great theme, is how you take problems and turn them into opportunities, but just coming and you opening up the doors here and the people that we've met today, there's a tremendous amount of heart here in Lima. And that's something that you can't replicate. When you feel that, it's authentic, it's real, it's special to Lima, Ohio. And I think this is a town you need to keep on your map.
Yep.
Amen.
Because
it's
moving and going places. So thanks again for being a guest on our show today, and excited to continue to follow your success.
Thanks, Jason. And thank Ethan. Thank you guys for having me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in on this episode of the Small Nation podcast. We hope that conversation proved valuable to you. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to share the episode and follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcasting platform. You can also subscribe to the Small Nation YouTube channel if you prefer to watch your episodes. Follow Small Nation on social media, and we'll see you in the next episode.